Hello, everybody, and welcome to We've Got Issues. It is our regular get together of a bunch of friends who've known each other for about 40 years. We are live on YouTube as well as Instagram. I think we're live. We should be going live by now on Instagram. So we appreciate you guys who have followed us, and we're just trying to be a part of the conversation about what goes on in the world, offering our unique opinions from our various backgrounds. And there are four of us, as I said, that usually are here, and we're all here today. And I just, by way of introduction, introduce those who do not know who we are. I've got my good friend Ron Evans, who is a fintech executive back on the East Coast. He's a very well-educated man, father of two, long time married, and brings his unique perspective to things. We've got Darren Gray, who is an administrator and a educator, University of Southern California. We've got our good friend Ella Neely, who is also a mother and an entrepreneur.
Hi.
Yes, she is a licensed contractor here in Los Angeles. And of course, my name is Nick Cates, and I am a realtor and entrepreneur here in Los Angeles. And so every week we come to this through what we've been talking about in our text thread, and one of us has the opportunity to present a topic that we think will be of interest to all of you. And today our good friend Ron Evans is going to take us to what's on his mind. So please do take it away.
Thank you, Nick. Hey, everyone. One of the shows that I know Nick and I watch on YouTube or on podcasts is Diary of a CEO. And they always have a question at the end that the previous guest leaves for the current guest. And this one question really was intriguing to me, and I was journaling about it, and I probably wrote my longest journal entry on this topic. And I'm going to tell you what it is and ask you guys to think about it. I'll go first, so it gives you a little bit more time to think about it, and we'll discuss. And the topic, or the question is, what prediction for the future do you have that most people don't want to hear? Okay. Mm-hmm. So what prediction for the future do you have that most people don't want to hear? Okay. So I will go first. And this will be the hottest of hot takes, or a cold take and a duh, depending on where you stand. My take is that the United States is less than 5 years away from a civil war. I cite a couple factors that make me nervous. We have the continued polarization of the left and the right. We have a primary system that rewards the most extreme views from both parties. And then we send them to Washington and we're surprised that they won't compromise. Well, they said in the primaries they weren't going to compromise. I think that is a big problem. Along with that is we are hearing language, especially from the current president, who said it more than any president in my lifetime, is the demonization of the other. The other started off being Mexicans. It's then expanded to people that don't look like him. And it is now going to a more macro level, where I believe he said recently that after Iran, the Democrats are the biggest threat to America. So now we are demonizing the opposition. And when you do that, there's no room for compromise. We've seen the rise of political violence in this country. We've seen a couple of assassinations. We've seen attempted assassinations. And when we look at all of this, you have to ask yourself, exactly how do we get back to the center and how do we heal? And it's all flamed by social media. What we're seeing now is we're seeing the use of executive power that many people on the right feared. They feared that the black helicopters and the federal government was going to impact their lives, do things at the federal level that impacted states' rights. Well, now it's happening. Look no further than Minneapolis, or Chicago, or Los Angeles, or DC. So you have to ask yourself, if the people that were afraid of the abuse of federal power are allowing this, what is going to happen when the other party gets in power and potentially does the same thing? I suspect they're going to be up in arms. And we are going to see the first state or two that's going to say, you know what, you liberals and your woke culture, I don't want to be a part of your country anymore. And that's going to start the demise of the United States. So what can you do about it? Get out. Well, we can talk about that later. But that is my take on what people don't want to hear is we're already dead men walking. It's already past the point of no return. And that is what I fear is within the next 5 years, those that can will flee, and those that can't will be here presiding over political and social violence in our country. There's a happy take.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that take, Mr. Evans. I think there's been discussion as to whether we're already in a civil war, right? It's a Cold War, but I think I think your thought about like the other side taking power and then the people who are, if you want to call them MAGA, or who had this concern about states' rights and those kinds of things. I don't think that concern was really about, what would happen if the left took over. I think the concern was really that we feel that we have the answer, that our way of life deserves to be preeminent in our society. That's why they were so concerned or so up in arms about the woke culture and whatnot. And so the history of America has been one of progress through violence, right? When people got here, took the land, took more land, went to war over it, went to war with one another in a civil war because, of whose way of life was going to be preeminent. And I think this issue has never fully gone away. So now you have someone in power who has embodied the ethic that, might makes right. That's Trump's way of behaving, right? He has convinced people that might makes right, and he's in it for them when he's really not, right? And that in 2026, it may not be until 2028 that the whole upheaval comes to a boil. It may come to a boil this year when elections, the whole veneer of free and fair elections is completely stripped away. So that's my take on what you said, but I don't want to.
And Darren, Ella, before you jump in, I just want to make a comment because you're absolutely right, and I forgot to make a point. The militarization of ICE is something where it's a paramilitary workforce that reports only to the president, and we've seen the first step towards intimidating the populace, and that is we've gone into the cities. Now we're trying to dress rehearsal in the airports. We know that come November, he's going to deploy ICE agents in Democratic precincts to make sure that the illegals aren't voting.
Right.
And this is going to be the first step. And if that doesn't work, then the question is, well, how do you invalidate the elections, saying that they weren't actually fair? So we're just going to set aside the 2026 elections.
Right.
And these are the steps. And of course, 2028 is in jeopardy. I would vote. I would say that 30%, 40% chances that we have an election in 2028.
Wow, that low.
Yeah.
Well, you provide a clip, and we'll run it now that kind of, I think, speaks to this topic. And then on the backside of that, we'll let Darren and Ella, lodge their voice on this. Whoops.
Everybody.
No, that was mine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go back and we're going to share this video. Stand by. Here we go.
You think the way this has happened throughout history that you could foresee something like it as a state of emergency called by a president in reaction to domestic disturbances or an exterior conflict that's sort of ginned up?
Yes.
And you don't think that's out of the question in the next few years?
Trump is looking at 2028, and he has to figure out a way. How does he circumvent or avoid the rule that he can't run again? And I think one of the ways he's going to do that is to create what's perceived to be a real crisis in America. And I think it's going to have to do with violence. It's either going to be some sort of small armed conflict with an external enemy. And you've seen him do a little bit of this with the drug cartels in Mexico, or he's going to try to craft some sort of enemy within this country. And he's going to do it, I think, in early 2028. It's too early right now. There's Americans aren't still truly believe that they live in a democracy. They truly believe that Trump's going to leave office. They think all they have to do is wait a few more years and this ship will right itself. And I think it's to Trump's benefit to have people continue to believe that. But as we get closer to the November 2028 elections, Trump will be running out of time.
You think
So, Ella, what's your take on this whole prediction that Ron and this representative from the Bulwark have to say about the Civil War issue?
So when we say civil war, that means that we're going to be killing each other, that our neighbors we're going to be pitted against each other. Is that what you're saying? That we're walking around killing each other?
Yes.
Armed conflict.
And everybody says it with a smile on their face.
No.
So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about this because this is something that that I don't want to think about. I think that the end is near. How it happens, I don't know, but I can't function on my day-to-day and live my life and think about all of these things. It's beyond anything that I want to conceptualize, that I want to think about. I don't listen to the news that talks about this stuff because I have to function. And so, I mean, I'll defer this to you all, but I don't spend my time thinking about it because what's going to happen is going to happen. And I just have to live the life that I have right now and just be joyful. That's all that I got.
Ella, I can always count on you to be like, what will be, will be. But in the meantime, my life is in my hands and that's all I can worry about. Right. Is that's where you're coming from?
Yeah.
There's a lot of, in my mind, a lot of wisdom in that. Darren, what say you?
I don't think that we're headed toward a civil war, at least not an armed conflict. I think the American empire is close to collapse just with our debt. We just won't be able to pay our bills. So I think what'll happen is it'll just be a de facto breakup of the republic where, we'll have certain states that'll be grouping together and other states that'll be grouping together. And I don't think there's going to be much of a war because the Civil War was someone trying to keep the Union from breaking up. It was the Lincoln was trying to preserve the Union, whereas the South wanted to secede. I don't think there's anybody who is necessarily that concerned with, fighting to keep it together because it's so polarized. I think some of the states will go in one direction. It won't be like the Hunger Games, but I don't think it'll even be an armed. I think it just over time, like with any empire, they go out on a whimper, not a bang usually, and it's usually because of corruption and not staying true to their ideals. If you go back through the history of all the empires, that's really what happens, is they just sort of wither away. There's some skirmishes over water and property and everything. I just don't think it will be something. It won't be a fighting war, at least in my opinion. And I think in terms of elections and all of that, it's just interesting to hear people talk about what Black people have gone through, particularly in the South, forever, with the poll tax, Jim Crow, people showing up at the polling booth, invalidating your election because they wanted the local sheriff or anybody. It's fascinating to me to hear it now. And it sounds exactly like what was happening, before the Voting Rights Act. So it's just very interesting to hear it, people say the things that have already happened as if this is the first time that it's happened. It's maybe the first time that it's happened on a larger scale to the majority of the population, but folks in the South had to deal with this on a regular basis. Reading law, you have to read to be able to go. Are you really a citizen? People burning down your house if you went to vote. If civil rights workers getting killed for registering people to vote. This all has happened before, targeted in our community, but now people are afraid that it's going to be happening externally to them. So it's just interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think one thing, and Ron, I'm gonna let you get back in here. One thing that I think is very interesting about the time we live in is that the majority culture has successfully turned the idea of who's persecuted and who's not, that the people with the power seem to feel the most persecuted, right? As opposed to the people, to your point, Darren, the people who were in the minority, were typically the ones persecuted. But now that there's been the civil rights era and there's been, and initiatives toward trying to increase diversity, equity, inclusion, now that there have been some successes over the course of time, the dominant culture now feels like they are the oppressed culture, and they've convinced themselves of that, to your point, where they're willing to now take violent action in order to right that wrong. Ron, go ahead.
No. I think that's a good point. I'm trying to understand, as I often am trying to understand Darren's point, because it feels like Darren is arguing that two wrongs don't make a right position, which is, well, it happened 50 years ago, therefore I should not care if it happens to a broader population today.
Nope, not at all.
Right.
I'm just saying it's interesting to hear what has been voiced in our community so long. It's just interesting to hear it on a broader scale. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that, it's right. It's just interesting because I've heard all of this.
But interesting is a non-committal word. Get off the fence. What do you really mean?
What it's just, I don't know any other way to say it. Like when I hear someone say, this has never happened before, when in fact it hasn't. I just find that fascinating. It has happened before.
Darren, who's the avatar for that person who you find to be interesting? Give us an idea about who that person you have in mind is.
Typically progressive liberals, middle class folks who weren't necessarily as impacted as the folks in the South, or the people who were coming in the industrial North, who were fleeing the South. The stories that my uncles and my great uncles and my grandfather, the stories they told about this, it sounds very, and then even just studying history, hearing people talk about not being able to vote or trying to go to the polling station and having, the sheriff standing there with his armed deputies, and to intimidate you, asking you questions about things that had nothing to do with the election. All of this has happened before. I just find it interesting that it's happening on a grander scale.
Not to interrupt you, Aaron, but it sounds like you're saying people who would tend to be considered allies, so to speak, a progressive thing. Mm-hmm. And I guess without saying it, say your typical white liberal, mm-hmm. right? Is like, this is a shock. Like I'm shocked that this happened.
Yeah, like this is the first. This is happening in my country.
Right.
And it's just interesting to me where you don't have to look far to see where this has happened before in our country. You don't have to look that far. I mean, it hasn't happened at this scale. I just find it interesting when people say that, because I've none of this sounds new to me. Like
But you realize, Darren, that when Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden and the whole idea about the rigged election or whatever, that wasn't progressive people saying, oh my God, the elections, they can be stolen, they can be whatever. Like that whole idea came up on the conservative side first, right? Like, and they're still complaining about it. They're still saying that, like our country is not our country, and like all these things. And now certainly you see when the Trump administration came back into power, and now they're willing to throw the full weight of what the presidency can do behind stripping other people.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, it's the same people. The conservatives did that in the South when the black population turned out, and despite all of that, and won an election. They've invalidated elections. They've lynched people. I mean, it's the same people. It's just they're not just attacking the black people. They're attacking a broader spectrum of people.
Anyone who doesn't agree with their ideology.
Yeah, anyone who doesn't agree with their philosophy.
Yeah.
So like we don't have a way of editing this out. So like you're either MAGA or nigga. Those are the only two things that you are.
Right.
If you're not MAGA, you're nigga. That's how they see it. They see them the way people saw us,
right,
for a long time. And I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying two wrongs make a right. I'm just saying it's interesting to hear people talk about this in such a grave extreme when, like, it's never happened before. The history of the country says that this is the way it has been for a lot of people for a very long time. The Native Americans, the Chinese, this has been this way for a really long time for a lot of people. And now that it has crossed over into mainstream America, the alarm has sounded. We've been talking about this. You look at some of the writings of the civil rights folks going back to the 30s and 40s. They've been talking about this for a really long time, about the fascism of the folks in power. But when a lot of the progressives were benefiting from it without being involved, they weren't burning crosses, but they were able to buy property on the other side of the red line, or they were able to get into colleges. When they were benefiting from it, it wasn't as an alarming. But now that they see that the full weight of the United States government can come down on them too, it's just interesting to hear that if they had paid attention, they would have seen that this is the natural course of where things go.
Well, Brian, we don't want to get stuck into the back and forth between you and Darren that we often have, but I want you to talk about a point that you raised as to what to do about it, right? You said you could stay or you could go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's two choices, and throughout certainly the 20th century, we have case after case. Certainly the most notable ones in our lifetime are Cuba and Iran, but it's pretty much everywhere where the upper middle class, the wealthy, flee the country in advance of a civil unrest and regime change. And I would encourage people that are thinking about what are our options, and if the next few years are as bad where the country just falls under its own weight, be it debt or otherwise, or if it's because of civil unrest and political violence, there's a couple of options that people should think about. And many of the countries, especially in Europe, offer three types of visas. One is a D7 visa, which is if your passive income is at the minimum wage of said country, they will give you a visa that you can then live in the country legally. You only have to be there for 6 months per year, and then within 5 to 6 years you can apply for citizenship. There's another one called the D8, which is the digital nomad visa, where if you are working and you have employment and you are a consultant or something like that, or if you have a note from your employer saying it's okay for them to work anywhere they want, you could have a digital nomad visa and work anywhere you want. This is very popular for influencers and consultants. And the final one, and the most expensive one, is the golden visa, where countries will say, if you make a certain investment into our company, be it into an investment fund or to buy real estate, although real estate's going away as an option, you can then get a fast path to citizenship. But that is the most expensive of the three options. But I think that it would behoove everyone to think about, if the poop hits the fan, what am I going to do? And if you have that plan on the shelf and you never have to use it, awesome. But if you do have a need, it's really important to say, you know what, I planned for this contingency, and it's time to get the go bag together.
How do you preserve your wealth or your assets? Like if you leave the U.S., so your Social Security doesn't go with you. If you're invested in multinational corporations, I guess you can take your 403, but if you're like in Fidelity, how does that physically happen if you leave the U.S. and the U.S., let's say, starts to collapse under its own weight? How do you get your money to go with you?
Well, it's a great question. So Fidelity, you can access it from outside the U.S. So getting access to your money and setting up transfers is par for the course. But if you're saying that what happens if they freeze your assets?
Yeah. If your assets are frozen, or if the U.S. companies that you're invested in start to tank,
Mm-hmm.
or this autocratic fascist administration says no money leaves,
Mm-hmm.
like how do you survive overseas if you don't have access to your funding here?
Well, you're painting a really interesting situation. First answer I would say is to be diversified, so you don't have 100% of your assets in stock. So certainly bonds, treasuries, and
But the treasuries are U.S. treasuries, all right?
or corporate, yeah, or bonds that are international. But yes, you can diversify away from a collapse in the global stock market. It's going to hurt like hell, don't get me wrong, because even at our age, at least 50% of our portfolio should probably be in equities. So that's a big honking haircut. But if Apple and Walmart go down to zero, we got much, much bigger problems in this country, which is we need to be having our bullets and our water for our prepper room. So in that case, it would behoove you to already be out of the country, because it's going to be a bad place to stay.
So how does internationally all the other countries not suffer if the United States goes down?
They will suffer. The question is, in a collapse of the United States, which brings down the S&P, the Dow Jones, and all these global companies that are in the supply chains and dependent on us being the #1 consumer market in the world, what problem are you trying to solve? There's two problems. One is, how do I get my money out, and how do I get out safely? And they're two independent questions, and you have to solve for both.
But we've perpetuated so much hate that you go abroad and people hate us.
No, they don't hate Americans. They hate our government. People like Americans. Now, it could be because we're bringing our Visa and our American Express cards with us.
Right.
They're very
working if there's a collapse. That's what I'm saying, is like, it's part and parcel, like our economic prowess. If that disappears and you go overseas, you're just another refugee.
Well, that is a very, very dire situation. But the situation I'm talking about is you have been able to move some of your assets into either international real estate. So now you've got dirt that you can convert to euros or whatever currency you're in. You also have the opportunity to move money into foreign banks. All you have to do in the United States is claim it. So you pay taxes on the foreign interest money that you make. So there are ways that, if you look at what rich people are doing, they already are establishing dual residencies all over the world. Singapore and Dubai, well, at least Dubai up until the past couple of weeks, were very popular. New Zealand for sure.
Yeah.
So these are the strategies that the wealthy are undertaking. And as I have said Darren, be it education and college or money, don't listen to what the rich people say, watch what they do. And what they're doing is they're establishing dual residencies, and they're making sure that their investments are spread out over the world to minimize the downside of the US collapse potentially.
Here's the sad reality of it, as I see your point, Ron. It's a nice idea for a very small sliver of American society. Like even in the middle class or the upper middle class, most people just will not have the option for family reasons, for economic reasons. Like there's no ability to actually make money, and they don't have the amount of money saved that would allow them, after the collapse of the American financial or economic system, to be able to sustain them elsewhere. So most of us are going to be left to duke it out, right? And by the way, if you own real estate, if you're so blessed to own real estate in the United States, do you give that up? Do you say, hey, I'm willing to sacrifice, what could be a short-term pain, of what's happening in America, and allow other people to benefit in the long run by giving up? There's a part of me that says that the idea is to make people give up, and then what's left will get redistributed even more egregiously amongst people who already have. So I just wonder if that solution of trying to, bail on America is falling into the hands of those who would prefer that, and if it's only a small sliver of people that could even do it anyway. So that's my thought. Let's
This is
open up
such a positive conversation, Ron.
That's why I said I was going to go
think about our
first.
doom and gloom.
Yeah. But to your point, Ella, like how do you digest like the possibility, right? I know that on a certain level you don't really follow all of that, but philosophically, how do you digest that into your day-to-day, the possibility that things could fall apart?
I don't. I mean, I could go out and get hit by a car. You know what I mean? It's like the only thing that I have is now, and I don't have any control over what all of these men are doing. And I mean, you guys laugh, but every day I just get so disenchanted with men because so much of this is perpetuated by men. But that's a whole different conversation.
Woo.
But I just have to live right now. This is all
Well,
I have.
wait. We're laughing because of how hard you hit the M. Man.
Because it's true. And this is all smoke and mirrors. I mean, at the end of the day, our current president is in for how much money he and his family can make. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, are they really going to blow up the world? You know what I mean? And so, because if it's going to hit everybody, it's not just them, it's going to hit everybody. And so you just have to, and what can I do? Right? Mm-hmm. I can go to you know what I mean? So I just got to live my life now, what I have, and just move forward. Because if it all,
like it's 1999.
I was looking at Paradise. You guys watch Paradise?
Yeah.
Haven't started the second season yet.
Yeah. Well, I was, and it's like you just don't have any control over it. Right. So I just keep on pushing what I do have control over. And that's loving these men right here, but about everything else, because it's just so beyond what we can even imagine. All these countries and these men just, whew, Lord. So anyway, that's what I have. That's all I got.
Gotcha. So do you have a prediction though, your own prediction about regardless of this? Yeah. Ron asked each one of us if we have a prediction.
Yeah, let me restate the question. There's a lot of time between the question and this next question. The question: what prediction for the future do you have that most people don't want to hear?
The time is short. That the end is near. That's the prediction that I have. But I also want to say that one of the thing about this administration is that the whole thing is set on negativity. They put out there that time is short, and they put out there the doom and gloom. And if you had a whole different perspective, if there were people in there saying, hey, this is what we have to do to advance, this is what we have to do to go forward, but we don't have that. And so, because of that, everybody's communication is about what's bad. What, at the point in which you have people who are hiring people and then getting services and then calling immigration to not pay. I mean, that just tells you what negativity does to people. It just brings out the worst. And in order from my perspective, if the language changes, if it's all about what we can do to be better people, better humans, how we treat each other, then this world will be just totally different. So that's
When
where
you
I
say
am.
time is short, Ella, are you talking about our mortality or the mortality?
Just be it civil war, just be it international war, just being somebody's gonna, some man is gonna push the button and have, a nuclear. So I think time is short in that regard. Like you said, 5 years is going to be a civil war. And that's what I mean. That it seems like something catastrophic is going to happen soon. That's what I mean by time is short.
Mm-hmm.
What
So
that
you don't
is,
disagree.
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't disagree with Ron. It's not so much whether, it's just what it's going to be that kicks off some major calamity.
If we allow the hate that seems to perpetuate and talk and culture in all of these countries, then time is short. We have to change the narrative. We have to change the culture.
Got it. Darren, your prediction.
I would answer the question you asked, Ella, about how you get through it. Growing up during the Cold War, thinking that tomorrow was the end, it was like every day. Growing up in Detroit at the time, with the auto industry capital, we knew we were going to get hit by, when the war happened. So just, the sirens on Saturdays going off. I mean, my entire life, it was always like the world is about to end anyway. And it just sort of never ended that way. We, after the Soviet Union collapsed, I guess there was a worldwide breath of relief, but I've not really changed my perspective on, the world could end tomorrow with the nuclear, hell unleashed. But that's what growing up was like. Maybe you guys weren't as traumatized as I was about, nuclear, the end of the world because of nuclear weapon. That used to give me nightmares. So for me, it's always been that way. It's like, oh, made it through the day, no sirens. And so that's how I make it through the day, because it's always been this way from as far back as I can remember.
Right.
My prediction is sort of related to Ron's, but in a different way. My prediction is that despite all that the current administration is doing, that the folks on the left are not going to flip the House or the Senate either way, not because of even cheating. I think they are going to focus on the same traps that the administration keeps setting out: the culture wars, impeachment. They're going to get caught into the trap that he sets for them, and people either aren't going to show up, or the people on his side are going to come out in record numbers. So I think it was like a couple of years ago when they were talking about the big red wave, the big blue wave, the big blue wave that never materialized. I think the Congress will probably stay in the hands of the Republicans past the midterms, even with all the things that are happening now. And it won't be because of cheating. I think the Democrats keep getting caught in the trap of this television guy who knows how to manipulate media. And I think they're just going to walk right into it, whatever the culture war issue is, that they can't yield an inch, even when it makes sense. They come off sounding like terrible, like when they talk about the Angel families, where someone who was here illegally killed a person, and when they say, "Do you think that our immigration policy caused that?" the answer is yes. But when they won't even answer that question and they start pivoting away, I think people are just going to be like, you're just not truthful. So that's my prediction, is that the Congress, like, they won't need to cheat because the Democrats are going to go to prevent defense, and they're going to lose the game.
Heaven help us if that is so, Darren.
Wow.
Heaven help us.
I've got my planner. I'm going to write that one down. That's a bold one. And I
Yeah,
hope you're wrong.
Well, I called the election, and you guys all got on me about that.
Yes, we did.
Well, let's
I think we
hope.
win the midterms. I can't believe that people. Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, if that, you know what, if that is the case, Darren, if you're right about that no matter what, what grief and chaos he's unleashed on everyone so far is not enough to convince people, A, to come out and vote against it, or get people to change their mind, then we get what we deserve, right? So, that's how I get through the day, right?
Mhm.
I live a part of my day in Ella's world where it's just like, listen, head down, do what you got to do, don't worry about the other things, but my other foot aware of what is going on, and recognizing that we get the country that we deserve. Like, that's just how it is. So I'll give my prediction, and then we'll head off to Ron's parting shot for today. My prediction is that more than necessarily electoral politics, the prediction markets related to being able to gamble on everything is really going to have untold detrimental effects. First, in the sports area, we're going to see the sports that we have believed to be competed upon, for all the best virtues of competition, is not going to look the same in a very short amount of time. And our personal greed and our personal desire to want to somehow be able to get something for nothing. In other words, betting on sports and so forth, as opposed to leaving sports on an island where you can't bet on sports because it corrupts the sports you bet on. That allowing that to happen, and then allowing the prediction markets to get involved in all kinds of things, particularly even investments and things political, is really going to have a horribly corrosive effect on everything that we have had some enjoyment of and felt like was done under a certain level of ethics and so forth. It's going to change everything. And again, to the point about elections, we get what we deserve if we allow that to happen. So that's my thing about that.
I don't want to hear that. I mean, I think most people probably would agree with you on that, don't you think?
I think most people the people who are involved in the prediction game, they see it as being like just an opportunity to be able to benefit from, because there are millions and millions of people who are doing it, and the people who are not in the prediction market, they're not really paying attention to it, right? I think most people are either engaged or they're just kind of like, okay, well, that's not for me, but good for them, but it's going to have a very corrosive effect on them.
I mean, Nick, you're right. And I would agree with Darren that I don't think this is a hot take. I think it's a very cold take, because the body of evidence suggests that this is one of the worst things that has ever happened to sports. Don't forget that we banned Pete Rose from baseball for gambling. And now you got ESPN crawls that talk about the odds of baseball, how many points, the prop bets, all this other stuff. And you're right. How could you not have somebody whispering from the trainer, the assistant coach, somebody that's making a basic salary, but he can make a fortune by whispering to someone to do a prop bet because LeBron's not going to play today? Right. Or what happened in the past, when was it, earlier this week, where someone put all of these bets on the price of oil going down, right? This Trump made it like 7 minutes before Trump's speech. And they made, I forgot if it was like $500 million or something like that. So it is going to absolutely destroy sports because you're not going to be able to trust the authenticity of what you're watching. But there's another layer that we're not talking about, and it is so sad what's happening to a generation as young as middle school that are betting on all these sports, and we're going to have a generation of men that are, I'm sorry, men that are addicted to gambling.
That what?
They're addicted to gambling.
Yeah.
Another addiction.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they don't have to go to Vegas anymore.
Yeah, and to your point, Ron, the knock-on effects of this are not just, you know, in sports, right? It's to that point, gambling and what we find to be like the norm, right? But also the fact that, to your other point about how it played into certain people maybe using insider information to bet against, you know, oil prices and just all the different other areas where this is going to affect, where nothing will necessarily be as it seems. And America, to a certain degree, this idea of being able to, you know, be self-made or pull yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever that ethic is, it allows people to say, if you can make money at it, it's a good thing. It's a virtue if it allows you to make money, is the way that this snake is going to eat its own tail and bring about some of the calamitous things that we have predicted, because the idolization of wealth and power in America is the ultimate, may be its ultimate undoing. So with that happy note, you know, I think it's just a cautionary thing. And for those of you out there who are check us out and who are watching, we're certainly open to hearing your comments and your feedback on what we said. Every episode isn't as, you know, dire and dour as this, but I think people are trying to try and understand, you know, where is all this leading? And I think your question, Ron, is a good one and needs to be asked. And there's something for us to do in the midst of that, right? We all have a part to play. Yep. So we ended kind of.
What is our part? What is our part? What are we doing?
Well, I think that part of what we're doing is that we're having a public conversation about it, right? And at the same time, each one of us in our own narrow silo of the world is trying to be a voice, you know, that makes some kind of positive effort, you know, toward the better future that we want to see, you know. You guys have any thoughts about that? Okay, well, with that said, we kind of ended on the destruction of sports. But I think Ron's parting shot is a much happier take.
It
on
is
sports.
It is. So this is a clip. So there's a baseball relief pitcher named Edwin Diaz that was on the New York Mets, and he has this famous walk-in music. Now that he's on he did it on the Mets, but he's brought it to Dodger Stadium. And there's a guy named Timmy Trumpets that plays this song called Narco. And the theme is for every home game where he comes in the last inning to get the save. So here's the clip. It's really cool. And this happened the last 2 nights at Dodger Stadium. Oh, I'm showing the one from the Mets. Sorry. There are better ones, but that was a short one. Very cool. If you ever Google Edwin Diaz, you will see a lot of videos. And he is a new relief pitcher for the Dodgers. That's his walk-in music, and it's very cool. So that's the palate cleanser for a very difficult meal to digest. For the
What's your walk-up music, Ron? What's your walk-up music?
Mo money, mo problems.
Nick, what's yours?
Apropos, mine is it's a song by the Killers called "I'm the Man." There you go.
Ella?
Ella, what's your walk-up
You
music?
know what? I'm not good on the spot, so I don't know. What's yours, Darren?
Chumbawamba Tub Thumping. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. That is my walk-up music.
Oh, that's
All
nice.
right. All right. Well, we've all got a song playing in our heads. So,
Yep.
And Ron, I would just wonder how much he bet on he was able to win somebody on the prop bet that he throw a ball on his first pitch, Diaz, when he came out, right? So
It wasn't him. Thank God.
right.
Yeah.
We may look back on this as the good old days of baseball before prop betting corrupted everything.
So do you guys know what Nick is referring to?
Prop
Probably.
betting, yeah. It's
No,
awesome.
No, but specifically, there was the guy that got suspended. He had a prop bet that he was going to throw a ball. Okay, so he did it once, and his people won money. But he threw it again to another batter, and the batter swung, and it was like in the dirt, but he swung anyway,
So
and
he
then
lost the bet.
he lost that bet.
So how do they know that these bets exist?
Because they're able to like go and trace like who's making the bets, what the account is. It wasn't him. It was like if I was the pitcher and you guys had accounts on whatever, and I told you yeah, I got you. First pitch is going to be a ball. Bet on that. So I didn't do it.
So how is this legal?
It's not. It's illegal. That's why he was suspended from the league. He and this other guy were suspended because they started tracing this and figured out exactly what was going on.
Right. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of illegal activity going on that is not traced, So, but we will end on the theme music idea and enjoy the glory that is this time of year baseball for those baseball fans out there, of which I'm marginally interested, but it is that time of year. So anyhow, guys, it's another great conversation and some really important things to think about. We hope that you guys will like and follow us on our social media. We're on YouTube. You can watch clips on Instagram and TikTok, and you can see full episodes always on YouTube. So we thank you for checking us out. Share it with a friend, and definitely like and subscribe to our social media. And guys, really enjoy interacting and talking through these deep concepts, and maybe next time we'll have a happier topic. So anyway, this is We've Got Issues. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you on the next one.